So we're just about to make our first proper cut into the Kombi, which is slightly terrifying. Sorry, my love. And what I'm going to do is a terrible bit of rust here. It's going to have to be cut out. So I'm going to cut here quite a big section and weld this piece back in. I just bent over a piece of wood with my hammer. And what that's going to do is that's going to open up quite a nice big hole, and I'm going to treat as best I can in this internal cavity that I can't get to properly for rust removal. And then when that's done, I'm going to weld that back on, and that'll be closed up. That was a bit terrifying. Not done a great job, has to be said. When I was cutting along here, I've accidentally cut just a little bit of this supporting piece here, so I'll have to repair that, but it's not structural, it's just superficial. This is bendy, I can probably just pull this out now. Gosh, Kombi, I'm sorry about that. So, I didn't quite hit the line coming down here, so I might tidy that up just by grinding that down to the line carefully. And then I need to do the same here. I need to grind this back into a straight line across where all the rust was. And then with a bit of luck, my new piece will just fit in here. But yeah, a bit of tidying up to do, but gosh, there she is. Blimey. Alright. Good-o. So while I've got this big hole open, I'm just using some of my rust encapsulator, because there's a bit in here which is a bit of an area where there's steel on the outside and steel on the inside, and it just creates a kind of an area that I can't get to, and it's got some rust in there. Just surface rust, not awful, it's not gone all the way through, but it's also not fantastic. So I'm getting some of my rust encapsulator paint in here. Thanks again, Richard. And that is hopefully going to create a non-porous covering over this rust that will at least give it a little bit of extra life before it really starts to rust through again. But I just simply can't get to it, so it's beyond my capability. So I'm not going to do it. I'm doing this as a kind of a best job possible type of approach. Now that I've cut this out and I've painted the interior of it, I have to wait for that to dry. I'm going to leave it overnight. Should be dry in 2 to 4 hours, but I'm going to let it fully cure, which takes about 6 to 8 hours. So I'm not even going to try and weld this back in just yet. So I'll do a bit more work on that tomorrow. Meanwhile, there's a little bit of rusty hole here that I'm going to take out. We've just cut a little plate of steel, 70 by 30 mil, and I'm going to basically try and weld that in there and make it look beautiful. It's slightly shaped, slightly curved, so I'll deal with that later. But the key thing now is just, I'm going to take this and I'm going to cut it out. I'm sure that a professional would take a different approach to that, but that's how I'm doing it. So while I'm waiting for this to all dry, there was a little bit of rust here. I've cut it out. I found out there's some metal underneath it, and then it goes out into the open. Stick the finger out here. So I've cut that out. I've got this little piece of metal. I've made it the right size. But obviously I need to treat what's underneath it. So I'm just going to scuff it up with a wire brush, paint it with the same black rust sealer, and then tomorrow we'll weld it on. So the time has come, I've always said, to actually do some welding on the Kombi. You can see I prepared 2 areas that I've cut out. So I've cut out a small piece of rust here that just needed to be replaced. So this is what I'm going to do first. It's kind of my practice piece, and then I'm going to stick this piece in here a bit later. So before I've started, I've had to do a few things for safety. So thanks Andy for telling me that I need to disconnect the batteries in the car. So I've disconnected the negative terminals of both my 2 batteries, my crank battery and my power battery, so that it's not that when I earth to the vehicle it's not going to blow up the equipment. And thanks also to Sparguta, whoever that is, thanks for your advice as well. We've changed the setting on the welder. We're now running with an output of 2, output voltage of 2, so a bit stronger, and we've increased the wire speed to 5. I've had a bit of a practice with that setting this morning, and actually you're quite right, it does seem to work better, so thanks for that, much appreciated. So now I'm set to go. We're going to weld this piece onto the Kombi. First time I've ever done it, terribly scary. First thing is to get the earth, attach it securely on. I'm just scraping it in a bit. I just took off some of the primer paint so I get bare metal here, so I get a good connection for the earth. And now we're all set to go. Let's get turned on and let's give it a crack. Well, you live and learn. So the my first attempt at a weld on a Kombi, not a great success. I think what's happened is that I had the output voltage up on number 2, and I think actually that may have been too strong for the original metal on the Kombi. It looks like it's actually burnt a hole through. So it has successfully welded my new plate in, but it's also burnt quite big holes between the plate and the Kombi. So I think it's actually melted away some of the Kombi metal, I think is what's happened. And so a bit of a disaster. I think I'm going to have to cut it out and make a new plate. But not a problem. That's what we're here for. So I've cut out the failed weld now, and so I made the hole bigger. I made a new plate to go into it. I fitted it, so I'm reasonably happy with the way that fits in now. And I've just got this taped in with a bit of tape just to get it sitting right. I'm going to try and spot weld it to hold it in place, and if that works, then I'm going to weld the whole thing up. Wish me luck. I have now welded it in place. It's definitely in place. I don't know if it's in the right spot, and it's got a really lumpy, awful, ugly looking weld around it. So I'm pretty sure I can see daylight through some little gaps in here, so I might have to go back after I've cleaned this up and actually weld it again to try and fill up the holes. I think that's what you're meant to do. So yeah, let's see what it turns out like. Alright, so I've made an executive decision. I've ground this all back to metal. I deoxidised it, I primed it, had some time to think about it, had a cup of tea, and what I've decided to do is that I'm going to experiment with this body filler, which I haven't used before, so this is my chance to experiment with this as well. And I'm going to put body filler over here, build it up, sand over it tomorrow, and just see what it looks like. If it's really awful and I don't like it, I'll just grind it all back off again. But this is all part of my experimentation. So here goes. I need to get this on. I've only got 5 minutes. So I've used my P80 sandpaper, rough sandpaper, to take most of it off. Now I'm going to switch to a P120 grit paper, which is just a bit finer, and I'm going to try and get this now down to the right level. Just using a wooden block just to make sure that I don't go into the cavity, obviously, that I've filled. And I'll keep going with that, and then I'll finish it off with a P240, which is a really fine grain paper to hopefully really smooth it off so you won't see it. So I've sanded off with a fine grit sandpaper. Not very happy. I've got a little bit of a lump, a dip in there, but I'm just going to go for it now. So I'm just going to prepare the metal for paint. So I'll deoxidize it where I've sanded all the paint off, all the primer. Now I'll give it a touch of etch primer spray just to seal it all up. And we'll see how that dries, and it may be acceptable, and I may need to go over it just one more time, but I think hopefully it'll be alright. So here we are, we've finished our first cut and weld on the Kombi. I'm fairly happy with it, but not ecstatic. So here it is. I actually wasn't happy with the first finish we had, so I actually sanded it all back off again, feathered out the filling a bit more just to get it a bit smoother to feel, and then I've primed it up a couple of times now, and you can still see that there's a repair there. There's a little bit of uneven here where it didn't, it's not flat, but I think I'll live with that. Certainly better than a big old hole that was there. It's nice and solid. First cut and weld complete.